A la peanut butter sandwiches. Yeah, alakazoo, alakazam. Yeah, open sesame. That's right. It's your friends here at the Cinema Color podcast doing another short trek today, and strangely also doing a little magicianship. So that's fun. Yeah, we're here to talk about another one of the short treks, and to talk about it with me is my good buddy and popsicle up north, Rob McCullough. How you doing, buddy?
Crom. And also I will say photon torpedoes away.
I literally have that in my notes. I do.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not surprised in this shitty week I'm having that I went into what seemed like, a pretty safe bet based on our track record with the Star Trek record.
Yes.
Of having a, pretty good 15 minutes. The hits just keep on coming, buddy.
At least it was short and sweet, right? So there's that. Yes, that's right. Friends, as you remember, Rob and I have taken up the short audio treks channel, which means there's 11 Peter Pan Records short story Star Treks that were created in 1975, and we're doing all of them. We did the first three. We found the first three, each of them in their own way, enjoyable, short, petite, digestible Star Trek stories. All of them had been written by Alan Dean Foster, who's a famous sci-fi writer and had done a lot of Trek writing for the animated series and for the novelizations of the animated series. And today, we're getting our first one that's not done by Alan Dean Foster. It's episode 4, The Time Stealer, and that is written by Cary Bates and Neal Adams. You probably don't know those names. I didn't know those names, but I looked it up, and both of these guys worked for DC Comics from the 60s until, well, one of them until the 80s. Neal Adams worked for them until 2022 when he passed away. So he had 60 years almost with DC Comics, Neal Adams did. Including his last big project with them, Neal Adams wrote a Star Trek Green Lantern crossover in 2015. That's the one we really should be reviewing. Yeah, I can't even imagine what that was like. But the other guy, Cary Bates, worked on video games and TV animation and also DC Comics. So these are the two guys who wrote this 15-minute episode today, and I'm going to say it feels like it a little bit. Feels like these guys had less of a grasp on Star Trek than our buddy Alan Dean Foster has. But I will say one thing for them, that if we're going to give them demerits for that, we're going to give them bonus points for actually calling the blonde guy in a blue shirt Chekhov this time. So good for them. Yeah. It's an audio thing, man. You just have to cook up a Russian accent. And our good buddy Lieutenant Connors in the last episode had a Russian accent anyway. Why not just call him Chekhov, right? So good for them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah, but anyway, so this is another one. So I would say that's the biggest change, right, is that we get Chekhov in this. And then my theory is that the reason that Alan Dean Foster did not use Chekhov is because he was writing these as story ideas for the animated series, and Walter Koenig famously was not on the cast list for the animated series. They replaced him with a character that was voiced by James Doohan, Lieutenant Ericks. And so that's why probably Alan Dean Foster continued not using Chekhov in these stories. But these guys aren't writing for the animated series, so apparently they put him in there. Good for them, I say.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, so normally normally I start off by saying what the mission was. I don't think we had a set mission in here. We joined them mid-captain's log, right? And they're dealing with some sort of a time slowdown or something like that. So I don't know what mission they were on, but they quickly have to deal with that. And then there's some aliens that show up and they have to deal with them. So there's not really a mission. But you're right. You intimated, you made a veiled reference to Conan the Barbarian correctly. Because one thing that does show up is a guy named Conrack who looks a whole lot like Conan. They actually said that the comics was kind of used the Marvel Comics was doing Conan the Barbarian comic books at the time, and they basically used that big, huge, hulking guy wearing skins, animal skins, and holding a battle axe, right? So,
Yeah,
Something you often see in Star. We've seen guys with battle axes in Star Trek 4. I think the Cage pilot had a guy in animal skins and battle axe, and
that's
so
right.
good for them. So what else did this episode have going on that you that jumped out at you, Rob?
Well, it starts off with the time dilation slowdown, captain's log from Kirk. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it got more nonsensical by the second after that. So I apologize to J.J. Abrams because I've made fun of his bullshit. Oh, you can beam to the Klingon moon, no problem. Oh, well, we have this guy we unfroze from the past. He's going to have a great idea. Let's make an Enterprise that's 4 times bigger. I like it, right? And things like that I felt were silly or stupid.
Yep.
I take it all back because whoever wrote this story said, "Hold my Merlin." It's I don't know. They were really throwing shit at the wall in this one, Butch. That's all I got to say.
Well, yeah, I think, what I found was most interesting is it starts off as a captain's log, but then the whole thing just remains a captain's log. Kirk is narrating the whole, it's like he's telling his captain's log. So anyway, after that, then this happens and stuff. It's like, and at first I'm like, well, we can see what's going on. I was like, well, no, we can't. This is an audiobook. I guess you kind of do have to tell the story. But the other ones told the story by like...
He's just recounting it. It's not happening in real time at all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other 3 stories managed to be telling it in real time, but he's recounting it. You're right. So that was a little bit weird. I thought that was jarring. I should admit, how I said this was has Chekhov in it. Apparently, this is the only story that was done from the animated series through all of these that takes place before the motion picture that features Chekhov. So that's interesting.
Did you say the name of the episode, by the way?
Oh, this is the Time Stealer. I think I did say it. Yeah, but I might not have accentuated it enough. So the Time Stealer. So we do get Chekhov, but not much of it. So the couple things that I thought jumped out at me was we learned that we obviously have the time dilation thing, time slowing down, and I did the exact same thing you also intimated in your comments too, which is it really felt like Robert Weiss is watching this going, yeah, I think I'm going to use that talking slowly.
Yeah,
in the motion picture when we do the wormhole scene, right? Exactly. The photon. I literally wrote photon torpedoes. Oh wait, I literally wrote that in my notes. It's great. So we were thinking. I'm glad we were thinking the same thing because that jumped out of the screen, jumped off the audio track for me.
It's because of the mind link that we formed when Omni was after us both. Butch, I don't know if you remember. We had that mind link. Remember I was carrying you? You were in your underwear?
Yeah, that's right. And you were wearing leather pants. I remember that. With no shirt on. I do remember that. Yeah. I see that a lot in my dreams. Yeah. So, boy, ladies and gentlemen, go back and listen to our podcast about Fate of the Phoenix and Price of the Phoenix. Whatever you do, listen to our podcast. Just do not read the books, but listen to the podcast. It's very important.
Yeah.
But this is what I thought also. So we meet these 2 aliens, and these 2 aliens say their people left their original planet a long time ago, and their original planet was Earth. And I was like, well, there's actually 2 storylines there. So having the idea of, and then Kirk says, well, but how do we know it was our Earth that they left? Which is a weird thing to say until you remember what Star Trek, the original series, was like, because there's at least 2 other alternate Earths that we remember from the original series, right? There's the one that Miri was on. Which was an exact duplicate right down to the continent.
But I don't think they weren't called Earth, were they?
Well, we don't know. I mean, the one that Mary was on wasn't called Earth, but everything looked exactly. The continents were all the same and everything, right down to the Florida Everglades and stuff. You're right. We don't know what actually Mary's planet was called because there's no Grups left. The Grups weren't there to tell us, right? It was just the Onlys.
Yeah.
But then there was also the Omega Glory, which is another planet that did not call itself Earth, but it was some sort of a post-apocalyptic where the Yangs and the Combs are fighting. We know it's got to be a parallel Earth because they literally have an identical copy of the U.S. Constitution in it. So,
Yeah.
That
might seem ridiculous at first blush, but not when compared to this. Now, Butch, I got to ask you this because, they're having the time slow down. They realize it's related to their proximity to whatever it is.
Yes.
And then they see a ship.
Yes.
And in a minute, we're going to get the explanation that it's a ship from this not backwards, but less advanced than the Federation planet.
Yeah.
Where they're still basically in a kind of I guess you'd call it a barbarian age, right?
Yes.
How in the name of hell are they creating a starship? Even if they have a magician who can think of it, how are they doing this?
Why is the guy, one of the two crew of the ship, carrying a battle axe with him? There's only two of them on. Why does he have the battle axe with him at all times? It's. I don't really have a good answer for that, Rob.
Well, I mean, you could have Spock, Data, Picard, Kirk, go back to 1808. They're not building this starship. Yeah. How in the hell is this guy? Because this thing shows up and actually fires on and damages the Enterprise.
Yeah, their shields were buckling, if I remember correctly. Well, I think that's fair. In fairness, he may have just been talking about a shield buckler, which is like a defensive device that you would carry while holding a battle axe. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't make any sense. I did give it 10 demerits for the exact same thing, but I'm trying to pull out things that are familiar, right?
Yep.
That one is not familiar at all. The idea of a non-advanced civilization building a ship. Well, now that you mention it, I guess maybe Spock's brain has something like that, right? Where you have primitive people that are flying around in ion propulsion spaceships or whatever.
But they
had an explanation
now.
for it.
They had kind of they had kind of reverted back to a primitive stage, but they had been an advanced culture.
Yeah, you could also ask the question, right, Rob, that says, well, these so then we have one of these two aliens later explaining, well, long ago we were on another planet which we left to go to this new planet, and it was called Earth. And I was like, well, what'd you leave in? Because nobody on Earth had the technology to leave Earth back then. Now, but that made me think of a couple other original series stories where people did leave Earth, or at least somebody left Earth, right? Because of course, Apollo was on Earth but left Earth in Who Mourns for Adonais, right? But he was he was a super powerful alien who presumably had the power to leave Earth, right, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then Plato's stepchildren, they left Earth around the time of the Greek and stuff. Those guys left. They were from.
Did they leave Earth?
That's what they said, is that they left Earth and that they went there. And
I thought they admired Plato. I didn't remember them leaving Earth.
I don't know where they would learn about Plato. Maybe I could be wrong, but that's my recollection, is that they had left Earth too. And I was like, how did they get off of Earth too? So beats the hell out of me. I think I'm really hoping now that you're right, and then I'm incorrect that the Plato stepchildren thing, they didn't come from Earth. They just admired Plato from Earth.
I assume they admired Plato the same way the Squire of Gothos admired Napoleon.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, maybe they just had a big telescope. That's right. So, so all of that, those two things echoed, the idea that you had an alternate Earth, or you had people who left Earth a long time ago. Those are the 4 episodes that came up. But there was another episode that came up because I'm going to say, you want to ask me what my big problem with this episode is. I completely agree. How do they make a starship from magic? But my big problem isn't that they're using magic, but that Spock buys into the concept of magic way too easy, right? I mean, it's like, he's like reading these things and it's like, there's no other way to explain it. It's magic. He has power imbued in him. I was like, that's not how Spock would describe it at all, right? Spock would say something like, any power that we don't understand would look like magic to somebody.
Yeah, I think Spock would take his dying breath saying, it's not magic. We just don't understand what it is yet.
Yeah. So that made me think, the example of somebody who had those powers imbued in them and he didn't think it was magic was Lokai and Beale from Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, right? They have what looks like magical powers to somebody. They can generate force fields or control things with their minds and stuff like that. That didn't make them magic even if they thought it was magic, it wouldn't have made Spock think it was magic, right? So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
my big
So,
problem
yeah,
with this is that Spock is inconsistent with what we know of Spock, I think. So
Well, and that it's not revealed in the end what it is that appeared to be magic. It's just it's kind of the end takeaway is yeah, that was magic.
yes. And so then the final thing I want to talk about before we get into this is our alien entity, and that's Gola, right? Gola is an alien entity who's basically a baby in space who's created this time dilation, and the baby is the child of a star sun or a sun star, as it's described. You know what that reminded me of?
Problem with that. I mean,
I don't have a problem with it. It just reminded me of something, but not original series Star Trek, but one of the novels, the pocket Corona. That's exactly right. It made me think of Corona, which I'm thinking is a good thing, right? It's like, the idea that you're coming up with some weird idea that an entity is actually a child of a star, and stars have some sort of sentience and stuff like that. That was the idea behind Corona.
Yeah, I think it's possible. This episode made me want to have a Corona, and I don't like beer, but I was just like,
yeah, something harder. Give me something harder than a Corona. That's right.
Give me the brandy.
Romulan ale / vodka or something. Yes, anything like that. So then the last thing I will say that also kind of bothered me is the idea that, okay, so Spock and our magician are going to come up with this idea of using the deflectors or the sensors to project mental images out into space. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means or whatever, but it's, I guess they've done it with, they got to tech the tech, and this is their idea of teching the tech, I guess. So for whatever. But yeah, there were a couple of things that I thought were jarring. Is jarring the wrong word to use? Off-putting maybe?
Well, I'm going to say baffling because that's my go-to, but I would say every idea in this episode was a head scratcher.
Well,
for me,
yeah. I mean, we're even going to get an Atlantis reference, right? And the Atlantis reference, I guess, is there was a TV show in the mid '70s called The Man from Atlantis. Did you remember The Man from Atlantis?
No, I was more following the Pac-10.
Kids, ask your parents about the Pac-10. It used to be this football program. It's a thing. So, all right. So, yeah. So, there was a show in the mid '70s called The Man from Atlantis. Patrick Duffy, who was on Dallas, he played a guy with webs between his fingers and toes, and that's literally all I remember is Patrick Duffy with webs between his fingers. But it was a TV series for a while in the '70s, and so the idea that is something else that's consistent with the original Star Trek and actually a lot of Star Trek, which is the idea of a mythical thing from Earth's past that might have a connection to something that was outer space related or whatever. So
like the Greek gods. That was basically, that's what that was.
Yeah. So I'll give them a couple things like that. Like I said, the echoes to Miri and Omega Glory and Who Mourns for Ed and
I'm not giving them a goddamn thing. Maybe I'm just salty this week, but I thought this episode was nonsense from the start and got worse.
It didn't win me over. I was pulling stuff out, is all I'm saying, right? It's like, all right, so let's get into it, I guess. So the sooner we get in, the sooner we get out, right? Okay, so star date for this one is 6134.6, which is much later than the other ones. So, but we're still, I think but they did say it takes place before the motion picture, which makes sense because I think TMP, they said this start date was 70 something. So that makes sense. So Chekhov is back on board. He's wearing a blue shirt. Good for him. So the ship and crew are experiencing a mysterious. I will say this: it was hard to listen to. I was like, did they get a different actor to play Kirk? And then I was like, no, is this playing at like 45 or 33 RPM instead of 45? It all sounded, and then I realized, they're doing a thing. It's cool.
Yeah.
And the thing they're doing is trying to make it sound like time is slowing down.
And it was pretty good, except they would sometimes throw 2 or 3 where it'd be like, I don't know what the heck is going on. Like it was
somewhat inconsistent. Yeah. Because when they go to Chekhov and Chekhov says something, he obviously didn't get the message. Sensor showing you clear, sir. Yeah. Slow Chekhov. You have to be slow. Yeah. But I did mention that Robert Wise is clearly paying attention to the wormhole effect, and I wrote torpedo away. So good for you. It's right there in my notes. great minds think alike as always. What else is new?
Exactly.
So so Spock says it started about 3 light years away from a high density field that's dead ahead. So Kirk orders Black Sulu to shut down the warp engines. And
he was gray Sulu at the time. I thought he was gray.
Was he?
I was like, he doesn't look black today. Is gray supposed to mean he's Asian? I didn't know.
Well, he still had the afro, so we're left to conclude. And he's still wearing the blue shirt, which is also wrong, but that's okay. You're making comics.
I think you mean afro.
Yeah, you're making comics. You want to have like it very colorful and stuff like that. So when they order the all stop, it reduces the slowdown. It's not getting slower, but it's still not sped up. And then at some point, Kirk tells Chekhov to put 10 light years between the ship and the energy field. And when that happens, when they start backing away, then everything goes back to normal. And so they're like, well, but we still got to figure out what's going on. And as soon as they say we got to figure out what's going on, a spaceship starts approaching them. And
which looked like a flying J.C. Penney's to me. I didn't know what that ship was supposed to be.
Well, you can see the escalator from the second floor to the first floor of the J.C. Penney right on that ship design. Yeah. You know, it always is interesting because they get artists to do like the spaceships and stuff like that in the comics, and you're like, they come up with sometimes with some pretty weird ideas, and that was definitely a weird idea.
It felt very Corbomite maneuver, right? You have 5 seconds to, whatever.
That's right. So they're gonna have another problem here in a sec because Uhura says that she had no luck in establishing comms, and then immediately, oh hey, here comes a message, and the message is from a guy named Conrack. I said Conrax at first, but it's Conrack, and he demands their surrender, and then Spock says, hey, they might not be hostile. They just might think we're responsible for this time slowdown thing. Maybe that's why they're attacking us. Well, attack they do. All of a sudden, the shields are buckling, I wrote. There's moderate casualties. That's the word that Chekhov uses, is moderate casualties. I don't know what moderate casualties means. I think it means that, just like America's becoming more polarized, only the moderates on the crew died and left all the right-wingers and left-wingers alive.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it was. But Kirk orders photons armed, but then Spock says, hey, you know what? The alien ship I'm only reading 2 crew over there. And so they get this great idea. Why don't we just beam their crew to our bridge? Or no, to the transport. I guess they did say the transporter room. The bridge would have been a bad idea. They can't do that in TOS, right? They can do that in TNG. But so they order them, and I'm like, don't they have shield? Doesn't this warship have shields? It seems like they can't just beam people off another ship if the other ship has shields. But either maybe they don't know that, or maybe the ship doesn't have shields. I don't know.
I think the writers don't know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The writers don't know, right? But I think maybe it's possible that there's a big warship that didn't have shields or whatever. Who cares? Because they beam them over, or Kirk orders Scotty to beam them over. And so we actually get Scotty to say, hang on it, Captain. It's not as Scotty-ish as he was in the other episodes, but we get a little quick hit of our Scottish accent, and that's cool. And then when they beam over, we hear Kirk narrating it again, and he describes there's this big, huge guy with a double-edged battle axe, and he's just beating the crap out of everybody. He's just throttled Scotty, and he turns and he's fixing to give me the same treatment. And then go ahead.
And it's kind of fun seeing a barbarian. I don't know. I'm just calling him that because I'm thinking of Conan the Barbarian.
Yes, he's a barbarian.
But it's kind of fun to see, some Dungeons and Dragons warrior in there wreaking havoc. But it makes no sense because what is he there? Was he the bodyguard of this guy? I mean, he's not even... it's just bizarre. It really is. Yep. It looks cool.
Yeah, so thankfully for Kirk, because Kirk he says he's using all of his advanced combat techniques, which presumably means like the double fist chop and the drop kick off the wall and all that stuff to stay alive against this guy. He's barely holding his own, but Spock figures out somehow, he surmises that the other guy in the room, who literally is the gray-beard wizard with a pointy star hat. Yes.
This is my impression of the pointy hat guy. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, yes! My Undertaker! Oh, yeah! Because
Paul Bearer,
as soon
ladies
as
and gentlemen. Yes.
as soon as Spock takes Paul Bearer's urn from him,
Yep.
the barbarian is powerless, and Kirk gives him a Kirk beating.
Yes, that's right. Kirk quickly administers the Kirk beating as soon as Korob. No, did I say Korob? I'm sorry. Korob is the sorcerer-looking guy from Cat's Paw, which I also got a little bit of Cat's Paw vibes from this when they're talking about a sorcerer.
Paw looks like, the Cat's Paw looks like a. Is it the Emmys for TV?
Yes.
An Emmy award-winning masterpiece compared to this schlock.
Yes, I will give you that. So Spock figures out that the other guy, all he has to go is over and VNP that guy, Vulcan nerve pinch him, and all of a sudden, apparently that's where all of Conrac's power was coming from, because the spell cast by the spellcaster. I was like, that's a lot of surmising. What did he do? He saw the big pointy hat and the fact that the guy was touching his temples, and he figured all this out. I was like, couldn't Spock just have VNP'd like the barbarian guy instead and done the direct? It doesn't matter. You know what? If I'm wrangling about that, I shouldn't be wrangling about much. Is what I'm saying. So they subdue the pair and they take them to sickbay. And in sickbay, that means we're going to get some Bones, who's still sounding like Bones, if you know what I mean.
Hell yeah!
I do love that guy. He says that the medical exam shows, and this is Bones saying, the medical exam shows that Clee, that's the sorcerer guy, is an honest to goodness sorcerer. That's the phrase he uses, an honest to goodness sorcerer. Which is weird.
You don't get to use the sorcerer assessment test, the SAT, with in the normal course of your duties. Right. God bless Bones for thinking of that, and of course it's going to show up on a test. Am I wrong about this?
Clearly you're not, because it's right there in there. So then while all this is happening, Spock's conjecture about the magic was correct. He's like, he has these collective energies which may as well be magic, is what Bones says, and Spock says, you're correct. And I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. No, they're not saying that. Even if they had no other options, they'd figure, well, I just don't know what it is, but it ain't magic yet. I'm not ready to say that.
It's a kind of magic.
There you go.
How does the card?
It's magic. Ooh, when I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, let's just sing a few bars of that. That'll be more entertaining. No, we're staying on task. Okay.
Mama, you don't understand. He's a magic man.
There you go. That's the one. All right, so Sulu reports that the time slowdown is moving, to which Spock says, fascinating. Check that off if you had that on your bingo card. Conrac says it's called, the thing that they're tracking is called the Gola. That's the name that their people have for it. They have a planet around here somewhere, Conrac and Clee do, and that's their ship comes from that planet. And this Gola, visits our planet a lot, and apparently by visiting the planet, the time slows down on the planet, and that's why their planet hasn't advanced past stone knives and bear skins. Ooh, stone knives and bear skins. That's a clever turn of phrase. Yeah.
Now, that probably acoustic guitar fun, but every other part of your day would suck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, every other part of your day would suck. And so they haven't advanced, and that's why they're still, in the medieval period of weapons and stuff, except for their advanced warship out there in space over there. They're going to give us an explanation, and we've already said we don't buy their explanation. But we'll move on. So the only way to stop the ship was built by Klee's wizardry, and their goal is to destroy the Gola. And so sorry about attacking you. We thought you were involved with the Gola. So then they decide.
Butch, would you say that their mission right now is Gola tending?
No, not today. Yeah, that's exactly right. So count the basket, as we'll say. So they decided to work together with Conrac and Clee because they realize they have the same shared goal, which is whatever this time thing is, we got to stop it. So they get set out there. They said, well, we didn't use the photons. How about we use the phasers on them? It said. So they use the phasers on the Gola, and that doesn't work either. They said the Gola seems to know no weakness. And then Bones goes on to say, well, it might be because it can control time. So when, the detonation of the phasers happen, again, detonation of the phasers. I was about to say that's bullshit for the original series. And then I remembered Balance of Terror, where they're detonating phasers the whole freaking episode. I digress.
Yeah, so
that was a great episode. I'm not going to shit on that. So, yeah. So the idea is Spock is like, wow, McCoy, that was quite a scientific assessment you just did there. Very astute assessment is what he says, which is fun.
He basically says, for a dumbass like yourself.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You stop rattling your bones, as it were, and casting your spells. Oh wait, I believe in spell casting now. So I guess anyway. Sorry, I'm going to let that go. So Spock concludes that Gola is an intelligent entity, and thus that he must be considered an enemy because he's purposefully doing this and all that stuff. And so they decide that revelation changes the calculation of the strategy, and Spock and Clee suggest we could transmit mental energy through the sensors. And you're like, well, what good would that do? And they're like, no, not just mental energy. We're going to transmit all the mental energy of Klee's entire civilization. It's not very old, but there's still a lot of people, and we'll just transmit that, and it'll overwhelm it. And I was like, I don't really understand what you're talking about.
Magic.
I believe it's magic. Yeah, so a composite burst of Klee's entire historical culture. And then McCoy... Thank you. McCoy says, Spock, you're space happy if you believe that is conceivably possible. I was like, yes, once again, McCoy holding his own as the sound mind and body of this entire series so far. McCoy is the MVP so far because he's the only one thinking rationally.
Hero of the show.
That's right. And Spock says it's impossible for science, but it's not for magic.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. This is so un-Spock-like.
All right. And okay, so then one last thing. Then there's Conrack over there saying, well, my consort, Clee, is capable of doing a lot. And I was like, wait a minute, does he know what consort means? Because I remember, consort to me sounds like something else, right? Exactly. Consort is something there's a pretty girl your king keeps around to either have his kids or not have his kids, whatever your king's looking after. So I was like, does he mean like, is this like his ward, like, Robin to Batman or something like that? I really don't know what's going on. You know what? And then I was like, I don't really want to know what they mean when they say consort, so I will just move on.
Yeah.
Seems like a weird word to use right there is what I'm saying.
The companion has romantic feelings for the man.
That's exactly right. I was like, well, calling him a consort or a ward, I mean, I guess technically these guys are DC Comics writers, so maybe there's that. Conrack says his there, and this is when we learn that their ancestors came centuries ago from a planet called Earth. But we don't have much time to think about that because the counterattack begins, and Clee is using this big board of controls to project his entire civilization's mental energy through the sensors. Breathe. Okay. So that's what's going on. And then it's not enough. So Spock joins in, and Kirk's like, no, this is going to work because the Vulcan culture's been around way longer. It's one of the oldest cultures. I don't know.
Even and you and I both are big believers in Vulcan mysticism, right? There's stuff we don't can explain. Yep. I'm not buying this.
That's right. I'm not buying it either. But it turns out it doesn't matter because the massive sensor burst resulted in backing off the Gola. It's been paralyzed, and then Spock says he's somewhat exhausted but feeling satisfactory, which is fine. That's about what Spock would say. He said while we were doing it, I reached out to the Gola's mind, and then he puts it on speaker. It's like, this is what the Gola's mind sounds like. And he just pushed a button and we hear, meh. Because he gets the sound of the crying of a baby. I was like, do babies in their head make crying sounds? Is like when a baby's thinking to itself, is it thinking, wah? I don't know. I don't know that a star makes
audible vocal sounds in its head. I assume you need vocal cords for crying or speech.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's thinking something, right? I suppose when a human baby cries, it probably is thinking wah. That's what it knows.
Yeah,
I don't. Fair. I'm not. the star child, as it were. Apologies to Paul Stanley. But yeah, I was like, oh, so you just spanked the star? Like what? Yeah.
He's got a consort to spank. So that's what I think.
My baby.
That's right.
He gone.
So listen, I'm a little bit concerned here because they realize that this baby was spawned in the heart of a star sun. I don't know what a star sun is.
How do they know that?
Well,
where is this coming from?
Yeah, well, Spock reached out to his mind, so I guess he can see what the star sees.
It's a baby.
Yeah.
You can ask it if you find a baby on the sidewalk and say, "What direction do you live, little fella?" It doesn't know. It's lost. Plus, he said it's lost.
Well, okay.
I don't know. I mean,
there you go. You're making a lot. You're making a lot of sense in an episode that's not making a lot of sense. So I'm gonna.
The baby's like, you have to turn left on Elm Street, and I don't remember what intersection that was. And Spock's like, "No problem. We have it in our." Well, I mean, you've been watching this thing for a couple of hours. You extrapolate where it came from. I don't know.
Yeah, me either. But here's what I do know. So they figure we just got to get this kid home. This fearsome menace is merely a child lost in the stars. So they take the Gola by tractor beam. By the way.
Yeah, what?
I don't understand. By tractor beam to a family. By the way, why is it not affecting them time-wise anymore if it's close enough for the tractor beam? I am not. They forgot the rules that they set out before, right? I don't know. Maybe.
But come on.
Yeah. All right.
They gave it up.
So they just got to. It's a tractor beam, but they're keeping it at least 10 light years away while they're tractor beaming it. Rob, that's what's going on. So they take it to its family. They find a family star sun to take it to. Yeah.
Butch, that's J.J. Abrams stuff, the tractor beam that pulls something 10 light years away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is very, very, very J.J. Abrams. And so Bones says, well, Spock, as a galactic babysitter, you're not half bad. That's fine. I mean, that's the end line of an episode of the original series. Like, I think it's been a long time since I delivered a baby.
Whatever this thing to the end, I'm on board with. Say whatever you got to say, people. Tell them, Bone.
To that point, they take Conrack and Clee home, but their Earth past troubles Kirk. He's like, I can't help wondering if it was our Earth. And then Spock says, no, I actually got a vision of that while Clee and I were doing our thing. And there was some. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Before you say it, this is me at every training I've ever been to. All right, we're going to let you out early unless anybody's got some questions. Boop. There's always some asshole. That's Kirk in this episode. I'm like, all right, they're almost done. Hey, what about the...
Yes, thank you. We were going to be done with this 2 minutes ago, Kirk, but instead, here we are. It's okay to go 13 minutes instead of 15 minutes. We would have been fine with that. But so Spock says, no, I saw a civilization on Earth that was on an island. And Kirk's like, hey, wait a minute. All right, and then he says, "Yeah, that must be Atlantis." And he's like, "Can you imagine? What if it was Atlantis? That'd be amazing." That's where Atlantis went, and that's where they went, and that okay. The episode ends.
One of the great mysteries of human civilization, Spock.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's terrific.
Terrible.
And by terrific, I mean the opposite of terrific. And so that's where our episode ends. Rob, where do you have this rank out of the 4 we've done so far?
I have it far, far at the bottom, and I can't imagine anything's going to bump it off.
Don't you jinx us. Don't you jinx us, buddy. Don't do it. Okay, so I have it at number 4 as well.
In a week where the Huskies lost the national championship, beloved coach Pete Carroll got fired from the Seahawks, beloved Husky coach Kalen DeBoer, like a thief in the night, scampered off to Alabama, I still have this ranked 4th.
Out of all those things, wow. This is the worst thing that happened all week to Rob. All right, so they broke their streak. We had an undefeated streak going, much like Deion Sanders in Colorado. It was too good to last. Yeah. Let's just hope it ends at like 10-1 instead of 3-8 as Colorado did this year or whatever. So I have this at number 4 also. But the good news is next week, when we're back doing another episode of this, we're back to Alan Dean Foster storytelling. So I'm hopeful about that. The episode next week is called, and I'm quoting, to starve a fleaver, not to starve a fever, but to starve a fleaver. And the picture does appear to be a lot of people scratching themselves on the cover of that. So I'm concerned that there's going to be some sort of a parasitic, an outbreak of bed bugs on the Enterprise or something like that. I don't know what to expect. I really don't know what to expect, having seen this one. So,
to me, like they're space happy from that picture.
Yeah, well, what makes one happier than bed bugs? That's what I say. All right, so that's it for us here on our short trek this week. Some are shorter than others, and some feel longer than others, is what we're saying. But that does it for us this week on our short treks. So, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, join us next time when we go on another short trek.
All right.